Díomh Garja. Is mis Seán ná Shane as Bearla ná le a Juan in Espanol. Tá mé mo choní I Spáin I an Gantad Valencia le a bhain céile agus ar dá chat. Is éannach mé agus is Gaeilge mé ach tá Gaeilge barista agam. Mar sin le cúpla bliain inis bhí mé ag fólam na Gaeilge. Is inaltóir mé, is inaltá ríomhara mé agus rinne mé alán clár na ríomhara. Mar sin, so this YouTube page, when I created it, originally was a way to just share resources in Irish that I'd come across. I wanted to share. I was restoring them anyway. I wanted to put them out there. I wanted it to be pure Irish. I had a vision of just speaking only as Gaeilge, gach fishing, but my language is not there and it might not be there for a little while. The point of this video is an introduction, a face to the channel. So yeah, I'm just going to go over 2 or 3 things I'm working on that might be of interest to fellow learners. The first is something you've probably seen while you're here. The channel is the 1970s Linguaphone Curse na Gaeilge Irish language course I've restored first, and then since I've been going lesson by lesson typing up manually captions as Gaeilge. I have found in learning languages, listening to the language being spoken while reading is the easiest, best way to pick up the language, the vocabulary. That was the point of this. The Linguaphone course is highly recommended by a lot of really, brilliant language learners, the polyglots, the people who learn languages for decades on end, and it's not presently available. As far as I know, there are 2, one from the 1930s, pre-language reform, out of copyright most likely, and then the 1970s, bit of a grey zone. You can get it online quite easily. The audio is quite damaged, it's pulled off vinyl. So I took that, patched up the audio, and it's really clear, slowly spoken Munster Irish. I found of the 3 main dialects, Munster Irish is the one that pronounces most of the letters. Also, there's a lot of resources for Connacht Irish. You have your Bunches Concha, which is really fantastic, and then even in Ulster Irish you have Now You're Talking, which is a really good resource too. So it's nice to have a third resource for Munster Irish. I found when I was learning Spanish, because in Spanish every syllable is pronounced, it was a lot easier than when I learned French, when the written French was nearly a different language to the spoken French, especially if you go to somewhere like Paris. Yeah, so the idea of this is you might come in and have a listen once, and then you might go back and change your language to the pardon, my YouTube is in Spanish, my computer is in Irish. You might switch to the English, Irish English, the Anglo or the Hiberno English, and then see what's been spoken, get the context, and then maybe switch back to the Gaeilge. This is quite nice for picking up language if you have the time, the focus. I use this language course mostly when I'm going out on a walk, if I'm doing housework or doing something when I'm away from the screen, or something that has to be done. I'll stick this on and do a technique called shadowing, in which you listen and repeat, often on top of it. It's quite challenging at first, but you pick it up. You're supposed to do this at a brisk walk to train up your lungs, your mind, get everything, all of the machinery working. I do this by the beach because the sound of the waves drowned out my voice. Otherwise, you sound like a bit of a psychopath, maybe walking around talking to yourself, because you're supposed to do it at a loud, walk quite fast and speak quite loud, so it can look quite deranged. But it's definitely, if you can do it, if you can get over that, it's really, really useful. If you can do that, a few times a week, I found the days afterwards, my brain is like, thoughts are coming to me in Irish. It's really nice. I'm picking up the language this way. The other way of learning, obviously, is input only, and a lot of people online really sing the praises of just pure input. You just listen all the time to the music, the shows, and then you just, you read and you just all input. I think this definitely works, especially in the beginning, but I do find it's quite frustrating long term to understand and not be able to speak, to hear and not have a voice. It's quite challenging. But also we're quite lucky in Irish because we have resources like Teach Catter, Gaeilge, really fantastic books. It's really nice to kind of get lost in the content. I listen to a lot of Teach Catter. If I'm like, finished for the evening, finished my work, I want to chill out, I'll just stick an episode, maybe on Cooler 4, maybe a cartoon just to keep it light. You can find online the full dubbed Adventure Time. I found this really nice. It's a bit of a bizarre, quirky show, but it's quite nice just to get lost in the language. To that end, this website, this app, LingQ, recently released an Irish offering. And the idea of this is, you basically... Oh, what's going on here? You can import any article online. This is the idea in Irish, and then you can, go through it. It has quite nice text-to-speech dictionaries. You can gather your words. I like the sentence view. Have a little listen.
Ní féidir brath Trump ach laid chuir sé deireadh le tréimhse útamála na dála.
I'm actually embarrassed. I don't know what's going on in this article at all. I have not been keeping up with the news.
Tréimhse?
So yeah, you can, get the translation of the words, and it's quite nice. You can kind of interact with media this way. The idea is to do it every day. I'll be honest, sometimes I come onto this and I just flick through to get my quota done, which is not the best. I find myself maybe zoning out and stuff, and this perhaps is just because of the content on this site. I'm not interested in current events. It's one of the reasons I actually love Irish, is I love reading books and stuff that's just not about current events. I'm not up to speed actually, even with what's going on in sport in Ireland either. But yeah, so I've actually posted some stuff up here myself, the course I showed you, and then some other stuff, which is interesting because I think I've become one of the top contributors. Yeah, that's nice. So I would say this is probably on the upper end. This is like your B2, C1 level of language. I think if you have the willpower, schmacht, the discipline to put the energy and focus in and build up a pattern, you could probably start from very early on and get to an advanced stage with this. I find this way challenging. When I learned Spanish, I was able to use just reading and listening and watching shows, any show you can think of that you used to like to stick on in Spanish and pick it up. But because I'm living here, from day one I have 7, 8, 9, 10 Spanish exams a day. Go to the shop, that's a little exam, talk to the postman, make your mistakes, and that forcing you to think in the moment, on the fly, and say something really builds the language up. I used to just read and listen. I think now my own personal philosophy is you need to read, write, speak, listen, got all 4 covered. And when you have something learned in all 4, it sticks easier, in my opinion. So on the other end of the spectrum from LingQ, I think there is Duolingo, which I think everybody might be familiar with in the Irish learning community. I was quite excited when that app came out, and in the early days it had the forums, if anybody remembers, and they were fantastic because you could go in on a sentence on the forum and there'd be all kinds of information and backstory, and it was really interesting. They've since removed it, and I'm not a huge fan of the ads, the hearts, the gamification. Like, it just seems like it drags the language out. Also, the thing that I found frustrating was the pace. I don't know how many times I had to type in hooped around the hair, and like this, the President of Ireland, like every second sentence. One of the things, which is something you might only use a few times, right, if you have the language. I get it that maybe this is just to build up the patterns and the grammar stuff, but I have quite heavy dyslexia, so if a word is longer than 4 letters, I get cold sweats. That word in particular was stressful. And then at the end of it, I think I finished it 3 times. One on an old account, and then recently I did it once, and then again on the legendary thing. But I don't have Irish. I can't read books unaided. I'm still trying to read this one. So yeah, I wanted to kind of find a gap, or sorry, a bridge between the gap that is, your A1, A2 Duolingo, and this maybe C1, B2 LingQ stuff. To that end, I have been building out what I want in an app, what I need in an app. And this goes back to what I said about Spanish. The dozens of little exams you have throughout the day is something that's not available in Irish, unless you have the privilege of, not privilege, if you have the opportunity to, live near Gaeilge or somewhere in the west maybe, or even in Dublin. I think there's a lot of places that speak Irish. But in Spain, especially in Valencia, there's very little opportunities. I wanted something that would simulate as much as possible what it's like to go into a situation and have to compose on the spot and speak it. This is what I have so far. So this will be iOS, Android, mobile app, and then web app. It's just now a collection of thoughts and ideas. It's incoherent, subject to a lot of change. The idea is you have your little forest or your grove or whatever, and within this grove you will have trees, and each of these is maybe a concept, a verb, a story, some aspect of the language, which is tied to the lessons. And then the idea is that you come in on your first day, and you add your plant, your tree, and then you do your sentences, which I'll show you in a second. And each time you do it, it just grows a little bit more. And then, heavily stylized around native trees to Ireland. So, you'll have your oak trees, your fairy trees, your hawthorns, your Scots pine, this type of stuff in a very Book of Kells style. And you can plant the same one multiple times. Each time you plant it, it's a resetting of the progress. So if you finish the tree fully, you've done the sentences 6-7 times. It should be pretty solid there, and then you might plant it the second time, and then as you grow your forest, your knowledge grows, and it's a nice little visual feedback. The exercises themselves, I've just stuck in the 11 irregular verbs. These are quite irregular verbs are always the most useful in each language, and also the most frustrating to learn sometimes. So yeah, I put in the 11 irregular verbs, and then this is subject to change. The idea is that these lessons are incredibly easy to create. It's just sentence pairs. You can create your own if you want, around your own topic, or import stuff, or pull in the book, or subtitles, or anything you want, and then you click on it, and then this is the current interface, subject to change. The idea is you get prompted English. My assumption is most learners of Irish are native English speakers. This should not need to line up perfectly with this. This is just to get your brain on what you want to say, right? So then the idea is to translate this, and originally I was going to do it that you would just, the honor system, you translate it when you're happy, just submit, move on to the next thing. That was not satisfying for me. I wanted a bit of a challenge, a bit of a game, a bit of an exercise to stretch the brain, and I'll show you in a second. But the idea is, you see this, have the tyranny of the or the terror of the blank page. You're not just like, oh crap, what is it? You can have a listen if you want.
Dean páidir gach éige.
So this is like text to speech. So you can put in any Irish English sentence pairs, and then the Irish will already automatically be generated, the audio. And then this little hangman style game. So we go word by word, and then this is the full sentence. And the idea is that this just gives you an idea of how long the word is. And the idea is to get over the fear of just trying, of just anything. So you're in an exercise for an irregular verb called aber. So you're like, oh, what's this first word? It's more than 2 letters, so it's probably not a ta or an on or an r. So is it aber? No, it's not. Okay, what is it? I haven't got a clue. I can try all the letters, or I can just take a little hint here. Oh, derim. Okay, that's derim. Okay, let's turn this off. And then the next word is prayer. Okay, so prayer, maybe that's a P. And then, okay, every, I think that's gok. And then iha. Iha is, and you're like, okay, there's supposed to be a fada on the I. In Duolingo, it's quite lenient on the fada, and that's a mistake. I do strongly believe that it's a different letter, man. It needs to be done right, and I think it's important just to get the habit of going back and fixing it. So if you get the totally wrong, you see the red here. This is your little hangman game. I put the sound effects in. These can be turned off, or later on I'll put that option in. I want to have a sound for when it's right, a sound for when it's wrong, so that you can get the audio feedback, the visual, the motor stuff going on. So yeah, go back, take a look, and then, it's actually fodder.
Dein páidir gach éige.
Get the little bing, a bit of dopamine, then you hear it spoken again. Maybe as you're doing this, you speak it yourself as you type. This is another technique similar to shadowing called scriptorium, where you hear, you see, and then when you type or you write, you send the letters out as you go. So that's it. I will experiment with putting in speech to text. That would be super nice. This whole approach to me is because I find typing is the easiest way for me to pick up a language. This may be just because I'm dyslexic. When I learned to touch type, I realised it's actually a known cure for dyslexia. It uses the motor part of the brain rather than the language part, which is not affected by whatever dyslexia is. I don't think that's just for dyslexia. I think generally the more of yourself you're using to learn something, hands, eyes, ears, the more your brain will absorb it. That's my theory. I think if you have to strain a bit, it's easier to learn. I think if you're just reading flashcards, or if you're doing something that's easy to be not paying attention, it's a bit more difficult. Also, with typing it out, it forces you to focus on the details, on the photos and stuff. And then the other thing is, it also, when you're doing this, I have found, I've only been using it in a few days, you pick up the patterns of the language. Interesting, because when you're started with a blank word and you're not sure, you can guess quite easily, and even just putting in a P or a B or something like this, it builds up deeper knowledge, I found. So I'm quite excited for this. I'm still testing it out. I wanted to share it now because I really want to make a free-to-use community app, like something just for Irish, from Irish learners, just around. It's not about making money, not about building a company, not about serving every language, just dedicated to learning this language. And then the idea of starting off with something that's useful, and people like and want and get feedback, and then just growing it, piece by piece, bit by bit, blow by blow, and then maybe getting to something that's anybody in the world can just install and just work through and pick up the language. I think if you were able to see this and type this out first time, maybe if you've done this 3 or 4 times a week, or the 7 times for the 3, maybe the first time you have to pick at the word and think and search and all this stuff, but maybe by the 3rd, 4th or 5th time you come here, you see this and you just type it out, and it's just, you have acquired the language, right? That's the hope. So yeah, I was going to say something else and I've forgotten. There's other stuff that can be done here, but the idea of I'm taking is to keep this to a minimum, so that all you need to do is create sentence pairs, or even perhaps you just create a single sentence in English or in Irish, and maybe that could be translated via something into something else, right? Into the accompanying sentence. But the idea then, you can just create, and people can create just targeted lessons and typing it out. But I think if you see this prompt and you can type it out, that's a good sign that you could speak that or write it without any help. So yeah, I've talked enough, and I think that's it for now, and I will see if I post this video or if it just gets buried. But Míle Bhuchas agus slán leat, and I will see you guys in the future, hopefully.